So I'm here in my downstairs bathroom. I have the sweater that I'm going to wash and block, and a sink that I filled with warm-ish, not super hot, just warm water, with just a splash of soak. This is the Celebration flavor scent variety. I love it. It's been lost for the last couple months, and Dom or Alex, don't remember who it was, found it hidden in one of their toy bins yesterday. So, soak, sweater, sink. Normally what I would have done is I would have woven in my ends but left the tails on. But since I might end up pulling out and reknitting the bottom hem and the cuff or collar around the neck, I've left my ends just as is. I'll weave them all in afterwards. I could have, in all honesty, woven in the rest of them, but I hate weaving in ends. Anyways, it just goes right into the sink. It's going to want to sit on top of the water. This is superwash, so it's not going to felt. I don't have to worry about that. You still don't want to be too aggressive with it. And apparently my sink also doesn't want to hold the water in. But I'm just going to submerge it. I'll probably add some more water to the sink and let it soak in warm water for about half an hour. The sink was a lot fuller. Apparently the drain plug situation is no good. Should have picked a different sink. Might transfer this to a different sink. So I switched my sweater up to my kitchen sink since the sink downstairs was not draining, and it's soaked for about half an hour now. So I'm gonna go ahead. You can see some of the color has run. Hand-dyed yarns, I find, quite often will bleed some color out, whether that's from the skeins that I overdyed or from the original dye job. I don't know, but that's really not that much. Sometimes with dark colored yarn like this, you have a sink that's practically black. Anyways, with this being superwash wool, the last thing I want to do is like grab a sleeve and lift it out, or grab the body and let the sleeves dangle and lift it out, since this is going to stretch like you would not believe. Superwash wool will just relax and stretch, stretch, stretch. Plus, wool will absorb so much extra water compared to its own weight. This sweater is still full of like half a sink worth of water. So I'm just going to gently press the sweater up against the side of the sink to try and take some more of this water out, and fold it in on itself. Okay, now when I remove it, I'm going to put it into this bowl for carrying. And like I said, you don't want to let any parts hang, so I'm going to try and scoop it up like a nice little bundle into the bowl with one hand while I hold my camera. So, into the bowl. Alright, like this is crazy heavy. It's incredible how much water wool can really hold. So I need to get all that water out. In the past, I had a top-load washing machine, and I would actually put the sweater into the washing machine and run the spin cycle for about 5 minutes. I have a front loader now, so I don't feel comfortable doing it in the front loader. If you have any experience drying woolens, like not drying, obviously we're not putting them in the dryer here, but if you have any experience putting your knits in a front loader to run the spin cycle, let me know in the comments below. But what I'm going to do is the towel method, which is a tried and true method. So what I've done is I've laid out a nice big towel, clean towel obviously, on the floor in my room, and I'm going to put the sweater, the sopping mess of a sweater, onto here. And again, the idea is we don't want to encourage the sweater to grow any more than it needs to. Even if growing is what you have in mind for your sweater when you're trying to block it, you don't want it growing in one direction and not the other. So try not to make the sweater have to support its own weight when it has all this water in it. So I'm just lying it out. I'm not worried too much about like confirmation. This is not blocking. This is just a process to get some of the extra water out. And all I want is to not have any, like I want the sweater spread out as best I can. So the sweater is spread out. Now you could just fold the other half of the towel over, but I'm gonna lay a second towel on top of this, which I'm gonna need both hands to do that. So one sec. Gone and laid a second towel on top of this, and then I'm going to also fold it in on itself. And now what I'm gonna do is roll this whole situation up into a wet sweater towel, and you can see just how much water has already come out of my sweater into this towel, making a wet roll of towel and sweater. And then the best way to encourage as much water as possible to come out of this towel, or out of this sweater and into the towel, is to stand on it. And so I'll start at one end of the roll and work my way down to the other end of the roll. This is just going to squeeze as much of that water out of the sweater and into the towel as possible. Because the towel can go in my dryer, the sweater cannot. Alrighty, now I'll unroll it. And you can see right here, it's soaked through 2 full layers of towel. That's how much water has come out. So now I have 2 sopping wet towels and one still very wet, but no longer like aggressively heavy with its own weight sweater. So now I can lay this out to let it block and dry the rest of the way. So this is the last step, and I'm using towel number 3, and I've put it on just on our spare bed here. And all I've done is just lay my sweater out and smooth it out and kind of shape it the way that I want. So I've tugged a little bit at the yoke to spread the cables open a little bit. And I flattened out the sleeves, I flattened out the hems, I pressed along this bottom hem just with my hand so that it's lying flat. And I'll flatten out, I'll flatten out this hem, and this collar that was rolling quite severely before, I've just sort of tugged and pressed on it, and it's currently not rolling. So, no pins. There's nothing on this sweater, it's all just stockinette and the cables. There's nothing on this sweater that needs like a hard blocking where we're like stretching it with pins. And in all honesty, you probably don't need to do that for most things except you know, lace patterns love to be blocked within an inch of their lives. But yeah, so the idea is not to try and change the size of the sweater through blocking this way. Although, like I said, superwash wool does tend to grow as soon as you get it wet. The idea here is to just have things lay and sit prettily the way that you want them to. And the hope is that with this collar drying in this unrolled position, it will remember that and stay that way, just the way that wool has memory. The same way that if you braid your hair while it's wet and let it dry, it usually remembers the curves of the braids. You know, the same thing, these hems, although the garter stitch hems on the sleeves don't roll anyways, but this bottom hem here, with it pressed flat like this, hopefully it will dry and remember this and not roll up as soon as it dries. Again, I'm not using any pins. Everything is just staying here by the weight of the water still in the wool, holding it down flat, and the tiny bit of friction that exists between the wool and the sweater and the towel and the 2 layers of the sweater. So I'll leave it like this probably till tomorrow afternoon. And then maybe I'll flip it over to the other side if it still seems like it's not drying very much. The other thing that you can do with sweaters at this point is get out a measuring tape and measure your sleeve length and then tug the other one to make sure it's coming to about the same place. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It looks pretty good. So that's about it. I'm gonna go ahead and post this video as is, and once it's all dried, I'll do another video showing the results of blocking and whether or not I've decided to do any additional treatment to the rolling that this collar wants to do. But that's all for today.